Hello, good day to you. I am going to talk about bedroom problems يعني مشاكل عش الزوجية. As you see here a lady, she is lying, rest, no worry, relaxed. That's life is good. As if she is in the womb of her mother. No debts, no pills to pay, and even no bath. But life, you meet during life problems. And here I'm going to talk about bedroom problems. That's anorgasmia. Anorgasmia is the absence of the cocaine rush that individuals report as feeling similar to genital orgasm. That's said by Miller and Gold, 1988. Forward. The brain of both a man and a woman is said to look much like the brain of a person taking heroin during an orgasm. According to the study published in the Journal of Neuroscience by Dr. Gabriel Horstich. Me, Dr. Osama, I ask, when a patient comes to you complaining of anorgasmia, that's to say, when ejaculates, he has no feeling of pleasure. Exactly as if he is a passing urine. How are you going to treat him? The euphoria of making love is the synergistic effect of the many physiological and psychological reactions your body undergoes. From pleasure to making babies, whatever the reason may be, it can all be broken down to a science. ولقد صدق الشعراء عندما قال أحدهم نظرة فابتسامة فكلام فموعد فلقاء. وأضاف الشاعر الآخر وقال فدم ساق بساق فولوج فارتخاء. Here, everybody of you said once upon his time, I love you. For those who were in United Kingdom, they must have listened to a famous English song says, everybody loves somebody sometime. So what happens? So we'll talk about sequence of events. There will be visual excitation. This reaches brain perception area. This sends to autonomic system, to sympathetic system. The hypogastric nerve causes decrease in sympathetic tone. Why? The parasympathetic system, that's the pelvic nerve, causes stimulation leading to vasodilatation, both in the male and females, resulting in 1. Engorgement of blood in the penis with shutting down of veins. The flow of blood will be, at this time, 15 times the normal. The second, there will be enlargement and lubrication of clitoris and labia in female. Then there will be foreplay, that's the touch, between male and female in several parts. In the hands, whispering in the ears, between the ears, kissing, cheeks, lips, thighs, till he comes to the clitoris. The clitoris is rich in pleasure nerve endings. There are 8,000 pleasure nerve endings. While in the male, in the glans frenulum, and under surface of prepuce, there are 4,000 pleasure nerve endings. The sensitivity in this area more than the body of penis. This knowledge might lead to modification of circumcision. By the way, in the perineum, there are 15,000 pleasure nerve endings. 50 of them are in the anus, while in the arch of the foot, there are 15,000 pleasure nerve endings. Lovemaking. It's important to note that hours of lovemaking are not common. The average time span an erection is sustained is 7 to 13 minutes. Then there will be coitus, that's penetration. Lubrication of the lower anterior vagina due to vasodilatation and percolation of fluids and its seepage to the surface of the vagina. What happens? The vagina will make an atmosphere influenced by the fluid. The lubrication causes the vagina is defined as a self-cleaning hot oven, which needs aeration. I prefer to call it an incubator. The atmosphere will be hot, soft, and moist. In special conditions, the shower of the vaginal fluid will be like a shower. The fluids of the vagina will be like a shower. You might meet it once in a life. In other conditions, mild scalding, stinging like hot diarrhea in the mouth, stays a few days. Here, I think the temperature will be up to 42, maybe more. Fourth, glands touching the hot, soft, moist cervix once in a life, it gives you the taste like a hot awama in the mouth. Vaginal fluid. The normal amount of vaginal fluid is 3 to 5 cc. It gives you the hot, moist, and soft atmosphere, and this fluid depends on excitation, hydration, and psychology. Vaginal lubrication fluid. Is it secretion or seepage? The mechanism will be engorgement of vaginal wall, raises pressure inside the capillaries, and creates an increase in the transudation, in other words, seepage, of plasma through interstitial spaces of the vaginal epithelium. This vaginal lubricates plasma. This vaginal lubricative plasma, which is rich in glycogen, flows through the epithelium onto the surface of the vagina, initially forming sweat-like droplets that coalesce to form a lubricative film that covers the vaginal wall. Back to coitus. The lower part of the vagina narrows in order to grip the glands and the penis, while the upper part of the vagina expands, widens, and engrows and elongates, pushing up cervix and uterus to give the penis place to go. Because the physiological arrangement of the muscle will be sliding. Orgasm. The brain plays a huge role in orgasm. We might think orgasm is localized to the genitals, but really affects our entire body, starting with the brain. Orgasm triggers activity in the brain areas involved with touch, memory, emotion, and judgment. And the process is similar, with some variation for both men and women, even if their anatomies are different. Orgasm. The vast difference contracts under sympathetic stimulation, collecting seminal fluids from testicles, seminal vesicles, and prostate, causing posterior urethral distension. Here, signals goes to the sacral nerves, number 3, 4, and 4th, resulting in contraction of bulbocavernosum and pelvic muscle, causing ejaculation in male. Number of contraction, about 5. And in both pleasural pelvic muscles, vaginal, genital contractions. Reward center in the brain that would cause cocaine rush due to the release of pleasurable hormone called dopamine 2 from the VTA to stimulate pleasurable receptors in nucleus accumbens. Reward center stimulation to sacral nerves, to pelvic muscle, and vice versa. Wishing you happy orgasm. The number of contractions in male depends on excitation, volume of seminal ejaculation. While in the female, the big bang is the moment when the uterus, cervix, vagina, and anus muscle contract simultaneously with cocaine rush in the brain. The question about the vaginal muscles or pelvic muscle, though usually an involuntary response, some women can control the muscles of the vagina to perform vaginal contractions at will. And here you see the difference between a normal female and an experienced one. Vaginal contraction enhances the sexual experience and pleasure for both parties during sexual intercourse. The female orgasm consists of a small orgasm, consists about 3 to 5 contractions, while a bigger orgasm amounts up to 10 to 15 contractions. Average contraction period duration was about 16 seconds in a female and 25 seconds in male. Now, the reward center. You see the nucleus accumbens. The stimulation reached to the VTA, ventral tegmental area in the midbrain, and here the hormone dopamine 2 is released to reach to the nucleus accumbens. Here are the pleasure receptors. The dopamine stimulates them. The more receptors stimulate, the more the pleasure. The more dopamine between the cells, the more the pleasure. And when there's a flooding of dopamine too in the nucleus accumbens, we have the best cocaine rush. and back from this reward system to the sacrum to the pelvic muscles. Dopamine and pleasure receptors. VTA produces and causes liberation of dopamine too, which does not cross the blood-brain barrier. Please remember this. Does not cross the blood-brain barrier. Stimulates pleasure receptors in nucleus accumbens. The more receptors stimulated, the more pleasure. The more dopamine in between the receptors, the more pleasure. The more dopamine flooding, the more pleasure. Pleasure enjoyed by a female is times and times more than that felt in the male. Please note that not everybody has pleasure. 70% in males and 30% in females have orgasm. Others have no orgasm at all, even adults. The Australian statistics varies a little bit. Says that 95% of men have orgasm, while 69% of female have orgasm. So there is pleasure, there is orgasm in the brain and the pelvic muscles. And the male there is ejaculation. Till satiation occurs with the release of a hormone called prolactin from the anterior pituitary gland, which shuts pleasure receptors in nucleus accumbens, stopping effect of dopamine, resulting in refractory period accompanied by serotonin kneeling down, resulting in sleep. What is refractory period? In human sexuality, the refractory period is usually the recovery phase after orgasm, during which it is physiologically impossible for a man to have additional orgasm due to increase in the penile sensory threshold. Refractory period. Is it only for men? Though it is generally reported that women do not experience a refractory period and can thus experience an additional orgasm or even multiple orgasms soon after the first. Oh, lucky her. Some sources say that both men and women experience a refractory period because women may also experience a moment after orgasm in which further sexual stimulation does not produce excitement. Well, does a refractory period occur in all ages? Statistics show that refractory period, according to age, in the teenage boys can have a refractory period of a few minutes, while a male of 30 years old is typically unable to have a second orgasm for half an hour or more. And for many men above age 50 and older, orgasm per day may be all they can achieve. What is prolactin? It's a hormone which from anterior pituitary, it causes satiation after orgasm by blocking pleasure centers in nucleus accumbens, and it causes refractory period, with serotonin causes sleep. It has an influence on sex. We'll see later. Then it has definite a relation with an orgasm. Yeah. It's worthy to remember that it is released 400% more with partner. It is released 400% more with partner than in masturbation. That's why in masturbation they don't have satiation. They do it more and more till even they have a colic and there was difference. What's the takeaway? For most part, the refractory period is a natural phenomenon and is usually body's way of healing and protecting your crown jewels, in other words, your testicles. How the brain functions during an orgasm. There is a study showing female MRI, and it shows activity in 80 separate parts of the brain, right before, during, after, and after orgasms, as seen in the changes of color from red to orange to yellow to white, as is described. Because of this coordination, it's called brain sympathy. Let's have a look, see how the fire excitation occurs at the synapse. Look here, general view, as if there's firework, all working, all the brain is working. There is a study in Netherlands, and they use radioactive oxygen. What did they find? In women, like men, enjoying dopamine during orgasm, but how much of the brain shut down during orgasm? The activation was the most important finding in area has to do with, that's in the female. First, fear. There will be decreased activity. Anorexia, decreased activity in the hippocampus, in the limbic system. Pain, feel page, PAG, very adequate gray, present in the brain, is activated in women during an orgasm, which decreases pain sensation. Secretes endogenous opioids called enkephalin. That's why female does not feel during biting or pulling her hair. Alertness, decreased in activity in brain stem. Why? Apparently in female, she relaxes. She let it go. Even go unconscious during orgasm. Whereas in men, they don't. The difference between men and women goes all the time. No shelter. Some has to be alert to jump up and defend the group from dangerous animals. That's in wild days. It must be men, so the female brain shut down more than men. She let it go. Look at her. You might think she is sleepy. Oh no, she is not sleepy. She is described like this. She let it go. Others say she is in another world. Others say she is unconscious. Others she says she is in little death. I myself prefer this description. She is in the ninth cloud. She is in the ninth cloud. That's تحلق في عنان السماء, flying in heaven. Look her, she is sleepy. as men when they have the orgasm, they go to sleep. No, she's not sleeping. She's in other world. Thus, vasocongestion in the female lasts long. During the resolution phase, vasocongestion may not return as quickly to baseline after female orgasm. So a man can, as male, so a man can go and have coitus again. So we are here. So what's next? There's the bedroom problem. Erectile dysfunction nearly solved by several medications. But there is another problem in the bedroom that men are sometimes reluctant to talk about, and doctors are unlikely to ask about. Maybe they forget it, they don't remember it. It is called anorgasmia, loss of pleasure during orgasm. Anorgasmia and age. One study found the problem affect as many as 16% of men in their early 60, 23% of men in the age 65 and 74, 33% of men in age of 70 and older. Remember, please remember, it occurs in 8 to 40% in young adults. So this is a problem. What was it? How do doctors used to treat anorgasmia? It's a tough problem because there are just isn't a lot out there, says Dr. Michael Lurie, an associate professor of surgery at Harvard Medical School and a urologist at Birmingham and Women's Hospital. What do they say now? Researchers from Baylor College of Medicine report that a drug called cabergoline, some call it Dostinex generic, restores half of men to normal organism. Restored half of men to normal orgasm. I repeat, this medication restored half of men to normal orgasm. The findings were presented at the annual meeting of the American Urological Association in Atlanta. The prolactin cure. So, prolactin causes anorgasmia. The study grew out of a basic observation, said leader researcher Dr. Tang Chin Si. When men have an orgasm and ejaculate, the amount of hormone prolactin in the bloodstream surges. Cabergoline lowers protein levels, which is why it's used to treat pituitary gland tumors that causes an overabundance of the hormone. He and his colleagues in the Baylor College Men's Health Clinic started to describe cabergoline. It is long-acting, produced in the anterior pituitary gland and crosses blood-brain barrier. That's different than dopamine, which is essentially the hormone of pleasure. Prolactin cure. It is apparently dead. In the very preliminary pilot study presented at the American Urological Association meeting, he said that 50 of the 75 men in the study said their orgasm improved after taking 0.5 milligram of cabergoline twice a week for an average of 10 months. Please remember that nearly 50% of the patient taking cabergoline 0.5 milligram twice a week for an average of 10 months. Of the 50 men who said things got better, half said their organs function returned to normal. Is that about 50%? They said that their organs returned to normal. That's they have the ejaculation combined with the pelvic or genital muscular pleasures, contraction, and brain rush. I myself, I had once an elderly who have an orgasm. I treated him with cabergoline, 0.5 milligram, twice a week for 7 months. He stated that after this 7 months, he was satisfied with the result. Look here, an elderly. He is dying for an orgasm. What does he say? Doctors, don't leave me alone. Prescribe cabergoline. Colleagues, thank you, and God bless. That's Dr. Osama Al Bishtawi. FRCS England, FRCS Edinburgh, Baus, Britain, FACS from America. Well, thank you for listening. I hope you do treat patients with anorgasmia with cabergoline and perhaps do statistics and feed me back with the results. God bless you. Bye bye.